Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome to Vecinos. My guest today is Rafael Castellanos. Rafael is a lawyer, a community member, and now holds the title of President of the Port Commission. Welcome, Rafael. Would you like to start our conversation telling us about your childhood, where you grew up, about your family, your parents?
Sure. Thank you very much, Maria, for having me on the program. I grew up in a small town in northern Nevada called Winnemucca. It's a small town of about 5,000 people to this day. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico. My dad's from Michoacan and my mother's from Guanajuato. They came in the 60s. My dad came by himself at the age of 16. He had an uncle who had come as a bracero to work in the cattle ranching industry in northern Nevada. And my dad, as a 16-year-old, his mother received a letter from that uncle, and my dad found the letter and ran away from home. And he was, even though he was illiterate, he managed to make his way 2,000 miles by pointing at the letter, and he managed to make his way up there. And the story is that in this little ranch, someone knocked on the door, and the person who opened the door saw this kid and went and talked to my great uncle and said, "There's a kid out here who says he's your nephew." And my great uncle said, "What?" And so he went out there. They'd never met, and he looked at him and he said, "I'm your nephew, Uriel Castellanos, and I can prove it. Here's this letter." And it was the letter he had sent my grandmother. So that's how my dad managed to make his way up there, and it's a remarkable story, and I believe, really symbolizes the immigrant spirit and why immigrants are such an important part of this country because of that type of personality, someone who is willing to take that kind of risk, and really to be 16 years old and to do something like that is really remarkable. So this country is made up of people like that. Everybody who's come to this country when they were an immigrant, however many years ago, they had that spirit. And so that's how my dad came. My mother, her father also came here as a bracero, and he was picking cotton in Roswell, New Mexico, when he received a letter from an uncle he had who came in during World War II as a bracero, that he had a job for him working on the railroad in northern Nevada. And so my grandfather, once he went to Nevada to start that job, and after he'd been there for a little bit of time, he was able to bring the rest of the family. And my mom, too, was 16, the oldest of 4 children. So I grew up in this mining town and ranching town. There was silver mining, gold mining, and not many Latinos. There were some Mexicans, but not a lot of us. And I had a really great childhood. It was a very conservative area, but we were obviously very social justice minded in our household, considering all of the struggles that we identified with. My parents worked in very difficult, labor-intensive occupations. My mother worked in a potato processing plant. She worked as a maid in the motels there. My dad worked as a laborer. Eventually, he became a heavy equipment operator in the mining industry. He also got a commercial driving license and ended up eventually driving semi-trucks and buses transporting miners to the mines there outside of my hometown. When I graduated from high school, I didn't go to college right away. I did take some courses here and there, but didn't really have much success. Neither of my parents had really any education. My mother's got about a third grade education. My dad really never went to school. So I started working in the gold mines, first just as a laborer, doing lots of shoveling and very low-skilled work. Eventually became a heavy equipment operator myself and did that for a few years and then went to college. I remember when I was in high school, the guidance counselor suggested that I join the military, even though in high school I had very good grades. And I remember thinking, I guess I'm not college material. I liked a kid that I think there's a real crisis of guidance counselor malpractice in this country.
I agree.
We have so many kids with so much promise who come from backgrounds like mine, but the guidance counselors, for some reason, don't have confidence in us. And if they don't help instill that confidence in us, well, it's very difficult to succeed. I remember when I was getting ready to take the SAT for college, I had no guidance as far as, hey, you should actually prepare for this test. There are study guides for the test. You can take a class. I thought the whole point of a standardized test was to just show up cold and see,
could you do it or not?
Yeah, right. What have you retained? What have you learned? I didn't know that you could prepare. That's the sort of thing you learn or is obvious if you grow up with college-educated parents. They just tell you, hey, you need to prepare for this test. You can do that. So I didn't have the benefit of that, unfortunately. So when I did go to college, I was very motivated after having worked in the mines. It's very dangerous work, and it was very hard work. I would work a month of day shifts and then a month of graveyard shifts, 12-hour shifts. In northern Nevada, the weather is very extreme in the summer and the winter, so operating heavy equipment during the graveyard shift in the winter when it's snowing and raining is not a very pleasant experience. So I was very motivated to get out. I went to Arizona State University.
How did you decide to go to college? What made you decide that?
I felt that I had the capacity to study and have a different life than just working in the mines. And my parents, my entire childhood, they would not lecture me. They weren't educated people, but they would say, listen, son, if you want to work like we work for the rest of your life, don't get an education. But you have to get an education if you want to achieve something else. So after working for a few years and saving my money, navigating the system, what it would take to get financial aid, apply to schools, have a good sense of what I wanted to study, I decided I wanted to study history because I did a lot of reading during that time in the gold mine. On the way to and from work, it was an hour drive in a bus to get to the mine, so I would read a lot, and I loved reading history. So I knew I had a passion for the subject matter, and that's what I wanted to study. And originally I thought I would become a high school history teacher. And so I started to take the education courses and the history courses and quickly realized that I probably didn't have the temperament to be an educator. So I then decided that I wanted to go to law school. And I did it for very practical reasons. I decided, look, I want a license. I want to be a licensed professional so that I can be mobile. I can live anywhere. I want to get past the bar exam and hopefully make a decent living. I grew up extremely poor. I didn't even have a bedroom growing up. It was tough. It was paycheck to paycheck in the household.
Were you an only child?
I was an only child.
Okay.
My mom, they tried to have another baby, but unfortunately wasn't a successful pregnancy. So I was the only child, surrounded by lots of family members. I was very fortunate. I had a lot of wonderful adults in my life and was also had lots of friends. So I had a great childhood, but we were very poor, and the economic anxiety was terrible. And my dad was in an accident when I was 7 years old and broke his back, so he was out of work for a few years. So it was just my mom working as, two jobs basically. When I was in elementary school during the summer, during the summer breaks, I would go help my mom at the motel so she could finish as early as possible so she could get to her second job on time. So I started working, I got a paper out when I was 9. Then I worked on a golf course when I was 11 after school, and then became a busboy at 13. I started working at 9 and have never stopped, and it was, to help the family primarily, and to help me be able to buy some stuff that just the middle-class kids had, right? A Walkman, some cassettes, a trendy pair of shoes, those sorts of things. So becoming a lawyer for me was very practical because I thought, well, I can make a decent living, I can help my parents. And that's always been very important to me. And I became so I went to college at Arizona State, I studied history. Then I went to Chicago for law school, which was a very interesting experience. One of the most interesting experiences in hindsight is that Barack Obama was one of my law professors. At the time, he was about 38 years old. He was a state senator, which is a part-time position, and then he was a part-time law professor. And he was a very dynamic teacher, young, friendly, completely different from all of the other law professors. But never in a million years would I have thought at the time that this guy would become president of the United States. I would have probably...
We'll be back in a minute. I want to continue that story. Thank
Sure.
you so much, Rafael, for being here. This is Vecinos. I'm Maria Garcia with WS Radio, worldwide leader in Internet talk.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
The richness of your life is reflected in the shimmering elegance found at Diolun Design. One-of-a-kind jewelry and pieces from Cynthia Dillon in silver and gold help to express your unique personality. The flowing designs of her creations will empower the way you move throughout your day. Join us online at DIOLUNdesigns.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. MCAULIFFE. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. As I said before, my guest is Rafael Castellanos. And when we went to commercial, Rafael was telling us about a very special teacher he had in college. Rafael, would you please continue your story?
Sure. So it was law school, actually, and it was Barack Obama was one of my law professors. At the time, he was a state senator, a part-time state senator and a part-time law professor. And he was very, very energetic, athletic, moved around the classroom a lot, was very active, kept it interesting. And he was very, very skinny, I tell people. And he liked to smoke cigarettes behind the law school outside, even in the dead of winter in Chicago. So I wish I had known he was going to become president. I would have worked much harder to be a better student in that class. So after law school, during law school, I decided to become a real estate lawyer. And a lot of people don't know what that is. And often ask me, why did you become a real estate lawyer? I think there's a stereotype, like many stereotypes of Latinos, that if you become a lawyer, then you should become an immigration lawyer or a criminal defense lawyer. And I've always rejected that because I feel that until we have attorneys, Latino attorneys, African-American attorneys, women attorneys in every area of the profession, in every area of industry, inside corporate boardrooms, that we're really never going to achieve the dream until that time. So I'm proud to be a business lawyer, in effect, and I became a real estate lawyer because it was very familiar to me. Remember, I worked in the gold mines. I worked construction when I was a young man. So for me, working on real estate projects where things are getting built, people are working, they're playing, they're getting educated in these developments and these buildings, I identified with that. The idea of building things, completing a project that would make life better for people was very appealing to me, and that's how I became a real estate attorney.
Okay, so you graduate from law school, and what do you decide to do with your life?
So I went to Los Angeles, go west, young man, as they say. I wanted to be on the West Coast. I would be near my family. Los Angeles was a place that I liked because I had some friends from Los Angeles when I was in college, and so I would come with them to California to visit. Really fell in love with California. Los Angeles was obviously a big city, a good place to start a law career, and I went to work at a large national law firm and spent a few years there. Getting some excellent training, but also working a tremendous amount and really not having much of a life, and ultimately feeling very empty and alienated. So I decided to move to San Diego in 2006. And it was just simply, I wanted a better quality of life. I wanted a stronger sense of community. And in Los Angeles, I felt that unless you're from Los Angeles or went to school in Los Angeles, had family there, it's very difficult to build sort of a social network, and I really was hungering for that. So I came to San Diego and found that almost immediately. San Diego is a small town, even though it's a big city. And I got involved right away with a number of community organizations. Mana de San Diego, which is a women's advocacy organization. I joined that organization and then became a board member, the first male on that board of directors. Also joined the San Diego La Raza Lawyers Association, which is the Latino bar association in the county of San Diego, and just started to meet so many wonderful people in the community. And that's really how I started to become really integrated in San Diego.
How do you pick what community things you're going to get involved with? Like if somebody said to you, we want you on the MANA board, or why would you choose an all-female group? How do you select your community involvement?
Well, that's a good question. Well, first of all, I was asked to serve, and so that's very important because we need to identify people who we believe will contribute in these organizations, and we need to encourage them to participate. I remember thinking originally when folks asked me, you should join this board or that board, the first thing that would come to mind is, I don't have time to do that. That's just too much work. I'm very busy as an attorney. If I had known how much more work I would have, 10 years later in my current role. So I was asked. With respect to MANA de San Diego, that's an interesting question. I really owe almost everything to my parents and the values that they instilled in me. And my mother in particular, because remember I mentioned that my dad had an accident when I was 7 and became disabled. So my mother really had to carry us. And this is a woman who, again, had really no education, and she demonstrated so much grit and courage and character that I have developed an extremely strong appreciation for the role of women and mothers in the institution of family. And so if I could participate in an organization that is helping create stronger women, Latina women, I know that as a result of that, you will have stronger Latino men who are being raised by those women. So for me, it's the connection was clear and strong, and I do believe that we need to support young Latinas and help make them, strong, professional women, and that will benefit our entire community.
Very good. Okay, so you're now a lawyer, and you're I'm assuming a very busy lawyer, going through, and all of a sudden, what led you to the Port Commission?
Well, I had now spent a number of years in the community and very active and engaged, and started to find myself more politically engaged, not because of any personal political ambition, but because I just thought it was important to support candidates and organizations that were involved politically, that were trying to affect social change and lift up not just the Latino community, but other communities that have historically been underrepresented or disadvantaged. So because of that activism, I was, again, identified by Council Member David Alvarez, who represents the 8th Council District here in San Diego, and he asked me, would you be interested in serving on the Port Commission? There are some vacancies, and I would like to nominate you. You have the right professional background, real estate and business law. Again, I wouldn't have been asked to serve in this role if I didn't have that professional background. So if I had been an immigration lawyer, if I had been a criminal defense lawyer, I wouldn't have had this opportunity. I was flattered to be asked to serve. I accepted the nomination, and I was fortunately able to get the City Council's confirmation. You need a majority vote for that to happen. So I was appointed, and it's now been almost 5 years. Currently, I'm the chairman. I'm the new chairman this year, 2018, and it has been really one of the most rewarding, fulfilling experiences of my life. And again, I was an accidental, inadvertent public servant, but I can definitely say the ability to make change when you're in a policy-making role that affects thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people is a really amazing opportunity. And it's incredible that I am in this role, considering where I came from, that my parents are immigrants, that they don't have an education. It says so much about this country. And I hope that we can continue to fulfill the promise of this country.
It just dawned on me, people might not know what the Port Commission does. Can you give us a little, what is your job on the Port Commission?
Sure. So the Port of San Diego it's a state government. It's a special district that was created by the state legislature in 1962, which owns and manages, on behalf of all of the people of California, all of the waterfront around the San Diego Bay, all of the tidelands, except for the portion owned by the Navy, controlled by the Navy. So the port has 34 miles of coastline around the San Diego Bay that we own and manage. That's about 6,000 acres of land. We have 2 cargo terminals. We have 2 cruise ship terminals. The convention center, the San Diego Convention Center, is on our land. We have 22 public parks, 3 retail centers. The airport is on our land. We have lots of preserved areas, and we have over 500 employees, $180 million a year budget, and we contribute about $8.3 billion a year to the regional economy, and about 64,000 jobs are related in some way to the Port of San Diego. So it's an economic engine for the region. It's extremely important.
And what are some of your decisions? I mean, what is it you do?
So we make land use decisions, lots of land use decisions. All of the development that occurs around the waterfront, we decide what gets approved, what doesn't get approved. We also have a harbor police department, so public safety is a critical component of what we do. Environmental stewardship. I was just speaking with someone yesterday who grew up in Coronado and told me that in the 60s, the bay actually smelled terrible. And in Coronado, the houses on First Street, right on the waterfront, were cheap because the smell was so bad. Now those houses are $5 and $10 million houses. So we've done a lot of work over the years at the port to make the water quality much, much better, restore a lot of the habitat. So environmental stewardship is a very important piece of what we do.
We will be back in a few minutes to continue this conversation, but I really would like to talk about the future of the port and some of the plans that we may not be aware of. Thank you so much.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Attention business owners. If you feel like your business owns you and want to grow your company and get your life back, then get the Scale Toolkit at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. Created by Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Finkel and Priceline.com co-founder Jeff Hoffman, this free collection of 36 videos and PDF tools will help you build a business, not a job. Go to scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com today and learn how to work less by getting your business to produce more.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
This is Vecinos. I'm Maria Garcia on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk. And my guest today is Rafael Castellanos, and we've been talking a little bit about the port of San Diego. So we'll continue that conversation.
So as I was saying, the port is responsible for a number of different things, including economic development, recreation, supporting our fisheries, our commercial fishing industry, environmental stewardship, the cruise ship business, etc. So it's a very important government agency that very few people know very much about. So it's been a real pleasure to serve on that commission. I will say that I don't fit the typical profile of a port commissioner. So I owe Councilmember David Alvarez a lot for asking me to serve, and I was fortunate to get the votes to be appointed. But it's been a very, very rewarding experience and important for the Latino community, and let me tell you why. There are some communities that are adjacent to the port, Barrio Logan and National City, and we have industrial operations there. We have next to Barrio Logan, we have shipyards and a cargo terminal that the port operates. In National City, we have another cargo terminal. And those communities that are adjacent to those industrial operations have historically been neglected. So it's really important to have people on the policy-making body of the port who understand what those communities go through, who those people are, and what their challenges are. If we're going to create good policy that is just, and you hear the term environmental justice, and what that means is that you have to take into account the people who are next to industrial operations and make sure that those industrial operations are not disproportionately harming those people. And when I say harm, I talk about air quality issues. Barrio Logan and National City have some of the highest rates of childhood asthma and overnight emergency room visits for children in the state of California. The Port of San Diego isn't responsible for all of that. The freeways that intersect those communities also contribute tremendously to the emissions that folks in those communities have to endure. But we have a role to play at the port, and it's incumbent upon the port to do everything it can to minimize its impacts. And so a project that we're working on right now is the redevelopment of the 10th Avenue Cargo Terminal next to Barrio Logan. And we are investing $24 million over the next several years to modernize that cargo terminal, to electrify the cargo terminal, to increase its capacity, but also lower emissions from the cargo terminal, lower noise from the terminal by using electric trucks, electric cargo handling equipment, and really trying to turn that terminal into a 21st century, clean, efficient cargo terminal. And that's good for the community for two reasons. Number one, we'll have less pollution, and that's good for public health. And number two, we'll have more jobs. We expect to create over 500 good jobs at that cargo terminal. And I would love to try to funnel as many of those jobs to people in the community. Obviously, folks who can walk to work, it would be fantastic, and that's good for everybody. So that's a project where I worked extremely hard to make sure that the port did lots and lots of outreach to the community to get their input about what they would like to see so that we can incorporate those elements into the project and get the support of the community. It's extremely important to get the support of the community.
Okay. I know you did mention La Raza Lawyers, and then we went off and talked about MANA and didn't really get back. Let's get back to La Raza Lawyers.
Sure. So La Raza Lawyers played a very important role in sort of my story to the Port Commission, because that organization, as you may know, was founded in the 70s by a group of Latino lawyers, and at that time there were probably 30 in the entire county, Latino lawyers. So there was a group of them, a small group, and they formed this association, and many of those lawyers ended up becoming Superior Court judges during Governor Jerry Brown's first administration. So these were activist lawyers, and they formed this association as a professional association to support Latino lawyers so that these folks could help each other succeed. And the association has played a very critical role, not just for the Latino legal community, but also for the Latino community. These lawyers are trained advocates. They advocate for issues that are important to the Latino community. It's a 501c6 organization, so they can take political stands. They can endorse candidates, and they do endorse candidates. They organize forums, debates. And so when I joined that organization, I became very interested in that organization being as politically involved as it could be, because I feel that strongly, as the trained advocates in our community, we have a special responsibility to be politically engaged and try to support candidates who care about the Latino community. So that activism, the association became a vehicle for me to get very involved. And as a result of that, that's one of the reasons why David Alvarez asked me to serve as a port commissioner, because he had seen my work with that association. And so I'm a port commissioner not despite being a La Raza lawyer. I'm a port commissioner because I'm a La Raza lawyer. That association has been very supportive of me, and I will always owe it a great debt of gratitude.
I'd like to talk just a little bit more about your background again, and then we'll talk about the future of the Port Commission. That'll be our last segment, but is there something you haven't shared with us that you'd like to share?
Well, I'd like to share that it's extremely important for all the kids out there, the Latino kids who are listening, or for the adults who are listening who have young people in their lives who they can influence, that these children realize that there are so many opportunities in this country and there are so many paths to succeed. And I realize that it's overwhelming. I was there. I know what it's like to feel that just because you don't come from a family that has an education or has financial means, that you still cannot achieve big things. And I never would have thought in a million years that I would become an attorney, much less a port commissioner. But the resources are there if they just believe in themselves. So folks should believe in themselves, and there are many resources available, and I just encourage everyone out there listening to really, really support young people and help them shoot for the stars.
I would like to make one comment about both National City and Barrio Logan. Most people do not think of low-income communities on the waterfront. It's always, they're somewhere far from the city. And as somebody pointed that out to me, because I've always taken it for granted having grown up here, oh, there's the water. Is this unusual in the state of California? Are we unique in that sense, or are you familiar with that?
Well, not entirely. So historically, you have communities like that pop up around these industrial operations on the waterfront, around ports where cargo is being handled. And here, for example, when the tuna industry was huge, San Diego was the tuna capital of the world, you have these communities that are the workforce for these industries. So it's not infrequent to have these sorts of communities around these industrial operations, and as a result of that, you have some friction, and it's a symbiotic relationship as well. So not unusual, but it does come with some costs. For example, losing public access to the water because of the industrial operations. These are things that we're always working on trying to improve at the port.
Okay. We have about 2 minutes before we talk about the future of the port. I'm sure there's something maybe about your family you haven't had an opportunity to share. I want to know what your parents' reaction was when they came to see you sworn in as president of the port.
I think it's really hard to describe because it's such a foreign thing to them. It was really remarkable to me to see them experiencing it because it's just, again, unbelievable. And it's what America is all about. And so it was like watching children who are experiencing the world for the first time, the sense of wonder that children have, and you can see it in their eyes. I recognize that same look in my parents' eyes. And there's no value that you can associate with that. It's overwhelming, the sense of joy that we all felt. And again, it's because I was able to get an education and because there were adults who believed in me and supported me, and so anything is possible.
And again, it's because you did emphasize this, the importance of the role the counselors play. And we have seen this over and over again. Kids, so many of the people that I've had here were advised to go into the trades or advised to, the military because they didn't feel they were qualified for college. So that's a very important part of our community.
It is, we talk about teachers all the time, as we should, but we also need to talk about guidance counselors. This is something that I think is neglected, and guidance counselors play a critical role in our education system.
Thank you. We'll be back in a minute and talk about the future of the Port Commission and Rafael's future. Thank you so much for listening. Guidance counselors, because I sit on several scholarship boards, letters that I ever read.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Attention business owners. If you feel like your business owns you and want to grow your company and get your life back, then get the Scale Toolkit at scaleyourbusnesstoolkit.com. Created by Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Finkel and Priceline.com co-founder Jeff Hoffman, this free collection of 36 videos and PDF tools will help you build a business, not a job. Go to scaleyourbusnesstoolkit.com today and learn how to work less by getting your business to produce more.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance. with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. I'm Maria Garcia on WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk. My guest today is Rafael Castellanos, and we have been talking on a variety of topics, but now we're going to talk about what the future for the Port of San Diego holds. What does it hold for us? What can we look forward to?
Well, a major project that we can all look forward to and which has been talked about for decades is the redevelopment of the Chula Vista Bayfront. People have been dreaming of a redevelopment of that area for many years. It was industrial in nature. Large parts of it, you may recall that there was a power plant on part of that land that was built in the 1960s, in which we imploded in 2013 to start to reclaim the area and prepare it for a master redevelopment. That is in the works. We are very close. We have selected a developer to build the first phase of that master development. And just to give you a little background, we're talking about 535 acres of land on the waterfront, and it's been fully approved and entitled by both the Port and the California Coastal Commission. So it's the largest fully entitled piece of land on the entire California coast. And the first phase of the redevelopment will be the construction of a resort-style hotel with over 1,000 rooms and an attached conference center. So it will be a hotel operated by Gaylord Hotels. It's an all-inclusive convention and resort-style hotel, and we are getting very close to signing a definitive agreement with the developer. And if we are able to do that within the next few months, then it is likely that they can break ground during the first half of next year. And this will be a watershed moment for the South Bay, because that project, just the first phase of it, will create thousands of construction jobs. Once the hotel is operating, there will be thousands of permanent jobs. It will start to contribute over the term of the lease for the project into the future billions of dollars of economic impact. It will be a real game changer for the South Bay. And just on a very sort of day-to-day level for what it means to the common person, think about all of the people who have grown up in the South Bay who have had to come to San Diego, to the hotels in San Diego for their proms, for their reunions, for their graduations. These folks have never had a first-class facility in the South Bay, and this will bring that to the South Bay. And I think it will be a wonderful thing for the community, a great sense of pride, and also will spur development around the entire area. So we're very excited about this. It's over $1 billion project, just the first phase of this project. So it's in many ways what we call the future of the Port of San Diego, is this major redevelopment in the South Bay.
Okay, that certainly is going to be a welcome thing, not only to South Bay, but to San Diego community at
Exactly.
at large. Okay, what else is in your projects?
Sure. So my theme, my chairman's theme for the year is ocean optimism. And it is the belief that the ocean is the greatest source of economic opportunity for our region. People don't know that our region is already one of the biggest blue economy clusters in the entire country, which means that we have many industries here that are water dependent. So ocean-based research, drug development, underwater robotics, water desalination and purification technologies. These are just some of the examples of blue economy industries that we already have here in San Diego. what we are trying to do is to really foster that blue economy and grow it. And that will create many, many jobs in the future for this region. Will create new pathways for kids to study both high technology, maritime-related topics and industries, but also trades that are relying on maritime industry, underwater robotics, technicians, marine spatial planners. These are just some of the great blue jobs of the future, and there are many blue jobs that we don't even know what they are yet because they haven't been created. Aquaculture is also part of this. That's underwater agriculture. The Port of San Diego right now has an aquaculture project as part of our Blue Incubator. Our Blue Incubator is a program that supports early-stage companies in the blue economy, and one of our first demonstration pilot projects is an oyster nursery. So right now in the Bay, I just mentioned how in the 60s the water quality wasn't that great. Well, the water quality is so good now that we are actually able to grow baby oysters. In just a few months, they are large enough that we can sell them to nurseries in the Pacific Northwest because we have warmer water here. They grow faster, and we can make a profit. And so right now, we are doing a pilot program. We are getting the health certifications. All of the health certifications so far have passed with flying colors. And the potential for shellfish farming, which is what this is tremendous and a new source of economic activity for our region. So this is a new area that the port is heavily involved in. It's very innovative. We're one of the only ports in the world that's doing it. And so it's exciting, and it's my theme for the year, and I'm very excited about it.
I have to be honest with you. I had never heard of this. So I find this fascinating, and I'm sure, I hope young people will think, oh, that could be a career for me in the future. Anything else you'd like to add?
Just that I really hope that people take an interest in the Port of San Diego, because this is really, it's a port city. Almost 100 years or 500 years ago, Juan Cabrillo sailed into the San Diego Bay, and at the time probably didn't appreciate what it would become almost 500 years later. It was a shelter then for him and other explorers, and it was teeming with life then, Native Americans, and now look at what it's become. So the water is central to San Diego, and it's a major part of our future and our potential. And I hope that the Port of San Diego continues to think very long term. What will the Bay, what will the port look like 50 years from now, 100 years from now? And that these initiatives, like the Blue Economy Incubator, are critical to realizing our potential with respect to the resources that the ocean can provide. And as long as we do it in an environmentally sustainable way, where we're not just protecting but growing our ocean resources, then the potential for ocean energy and other industries are tremendous. Wave energy, biofuel from seaweed and algae. It's amazing how many interesting things are happening related to the water.
We only have about a minute and a half left, but I'd like to ask you, what does your political future look like?
Well, I ran for city attorney in 2016. You may recall that, and it was an amazing experience. Unfortunately, we came just a little bit short of getting into the runoff, but as a first-time candidate, we ran a great campaign, and we had a lot of support from a lot of folks, and I think really surprised a lot of people. And so I would love to run again when there is an office that I believe I'm the right person for the job. I would love to run again. I'm very passionate about my service, my community service, my public service. I mentioned that I became a lawyer because I wanted to have economic security, because I grew up in such a poor household, and that's important. But I've never felt richer than I do now because of my public service, even though it has definitely my economic condition has taken a hit because, public service doesn't pay very well.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and all this information with our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Kinja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kinja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KinjaDixon.com. On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. If you've ever wanted to grow your business, but held yourself back from fear that it would take over your life, then we urge you to get your copy of Scale today. It'll give you a proven roadmap for rapidly growing your business while also gaining more personal freedom. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Scale is for every entrepreneur who ever wondered if they really own their business or if their business owns them. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. That's scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Controversy and conversation to upset the status quo. A no-holds-barred exploration and obliteration of the limits of possibility. Join me, Steve Olsher, and my rambunctious crew on Reinvention Radio, where each week we scour the planet to bring you the world's foremost social, business, political, technology, and scientific disruptors who challenge the accepted and forge daring, cutting-edge paths. That's Reinvention Radio, where normal comes to die and mediocrity meets its final demise.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.